Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm Angela Wilkinson, attraction coach and founder of The Goddess Next Door. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. Derek Rydall is the world's #1 expert on the revolutionary law of emergence. And he is here with me today to teach us about emergence, the radical process for achieving anything, regardless of conditions. Listen in as I find out why most practices fail or make matters worse, and how to end this destructive pattern. Find out the revolutionary principle for manifesting everything you need, no matter what conditions you face. This is a game changer. Also, I'm going to find out the weird practice for getting unstuck for life and unlocking massive abundance. Once you understand this, you'll never be a victim of anything again. You'll also find out the real secret that can generate rapid wealth and opportunity in your life. We'll flip the switch on your inner power plant, live on the call. The unconscious habit that has been secretly sapping you of your power and control, and how to reverse it all. And the 7-stage process for unleashing the full potential of any project or area in your life. But before I talk with Derek, I want to have a heart-to-heart with you. There was always something I wanted so deeply that eluded me in my heart, and there was a point when I wasn't sure it was possible. That was finding true love. For years, I struggled to get my relationships right, and I can tell you from experience, it's not about how much you know or how many degrees you have. It takes more than that. I found myself emotionally entangled with the passive guy, the unmotivated guy, and the emotionally unavailable guy who couldn't or wouldn't commit. And all of my relationships ended in heartbreak. I was getting really frustrated, and I didn't understand what I was doing wrong. Now, looking back, I see what was happening. Deep down, I didn't feel worthy of love. It was in that moment when I made a decision. I was no longer willing to settle. I was done attracting those types of men into my life, so I knew that I needed to make a change. I knew it could be done. Other women had the fairy tale, and I wanted it too. So I put everything I knew to the test. Over time, I learned what worked and what didn't. I boiled it down to the most powerful things that worked, and I was truly ready to allow myself to have the love I always wanted. Here's what happened. I walked myself step by step through what is now the Love Spark program, and I met an amazing man within 30 days. Our story is mind-blowing, and every day our relationship unfolds with more and more excitement and fulfillment of my ultimate dream of true love. Maybe you're where I was just 8 months ago. Maybe you've lost the faith that you can meet someone amazing who gets you, who it's not a struggle to be with, or where the relationship is just one-sided. If you are ready for love, let me show you it's possible. In 6 months, I will guide you through the exact steps I took and prepare you to fall in love and have your fairy tale ending. The Love Spark program is just one of the many benefits of being a Spark Society member. If you'd like more information, visit theawakenedgoddess.com or go to the podcast page and click on the Spark Society banner. I hope you will join me on this journey to finding true love. Now, let's hear what Derek has to say about the law of emergence. Welcome, Derek, to the Awakened Goddess Show. I'm excited to have you here talking about emergence, the radical process for achieving anything regardless of conditions. That will be an awesome, juicy topic to talk about. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, truly.
Yeah. So I was just like devouring your book, and I swear you were in my mind. You were in my brain, because what you were talking about really has been my life. I don't know how many years. So I can't wait to just ask you lots of questions and just pick your brain. And, I know for the listeners, I'm sure that they're kind of in the same boat. So yeah, let's just dive in. So you talk about the law of emergence, and I imagine that this is a new term for people. So what's the difference between the law of emergence and the law of attraction?
Yeah, so the law, for me, I went through many years of struggling to improve my life and heal my life and fix my life and get over a bad childhood, so-called, and heartbreaks and failures and all kinds of modalities, and manifestation techniques and attraction and years of self-improvement therapy and work. And the only thing I improved was my ability to describe why my life was so screwed up. Mm-hmm. I became very, very adept at describing, very much improved at understanding why things weren't working. But nothing really changed. In fact, things got worse and worse the more I tried to improve my life.
Yeah.
And to the point where I improved myself into becoming addicted to drugs and alcohol. And then almost died of an overdose. And that wasn't quite enough to shake me out of it. And then I almost died again from drowning. And in my drowning experience, nearly drowning, I came to a moment of profound surrender where I knew I was going to drown. And I think you said you read the book, so you probably read me talking about that experience. And in a moment of profound surrender, something cracked open in me, and I could see, I had a glimpse of my true self that I didn't have words for at the time, but it was so radical, the shift it caused, that I say Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall, and I tried to put Humpty back together again for the next year, but couldn't. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going into a deep introspective period for a couple years, meditating. I was going to become a monk, but I cloistered myself in my apartment, and I had this deep inner practice and discovery where I saw that this self that I had been trying to fix and improve and all that was actually a fiction. It didn't really exist. It was a concept. And that all of and that the self, the real self, was already whole, was already complete, was already perfect. So it never had been damaged. So it didn't need to be fixed. And it was already complete. So it couldn't be improved upon. Right. And that all of my efforts to fix, change, heal, improve, attract, all of that was a form of resistance to the natural discovery and emergence of that which was already in me.
Okay. Can you say that again, please? I think that's a really powerful statement.
Yeah. So most of my efforts to fix, change, heal, improve, or attract was actually a form of resistance to the natural wholeness and perfection that was in me trying to emerge. And primarily because when I was coming from the premise that I was broken, lacking, something was missing, something was wrong. So that's the premise that I'm starting from. Now I'm going to have to fix, change, improve, or attract something. I'm already off track of who I am. I'm already living in a fictional story, and I must keep creating and recreating whatever story I'm living in, whatever premise I'm starting from. And so that's one of the biggest challenges with the law of attraction, is that just in the word itself, you're trying to attract something to you. You're already in a premise that you're missing something.
Yeah, good
and
point.
So, it's like the old metaphysical statement: to him or her who is right in mind, they can do all the wrong things, it'll still turn out right. But to him or her who is wrong in mind, they can do all the right things and it will still turn out wrong. So when you believe you're lacking something, you are wrong in mind.
Yeah.
You are off. And now you are going to do all this stuff to attract it. But even if through sheer will and the law of mind, you manifest that bigger paycheck, you will end up being broke at a higher income bracket. Mm-hmm. Or if you manifest a bigger house, you will feel even less at home. Or you manifest a new partner from the place of you don't fully love and value and honor and know that you're enough. So you want to attract somebody so that they can complete you. Thank you, Jerry Maguire. If you do that, from the standpoint of attraction, two halves don't make a whole. HALVES. Mm-hmm. But two halves, HAVES, you're already whole. Mm-hmm. So that's the problem with attraction, is that it's primarily coming from a false premise that you're lacking that you have to now attract. And if you look at nature, it's like the acorn. Does the acorn have to go out and attract an oak tree? No, of course not. Mm-hmm. That would be ridiculous, right? Yeah. Does the acorn have to go out and build and achieve oakhood? No. Is the acorn an inadequate oak tree? No. So the acorn is a perfect acorn. And when it surrenders to the soil and the conditions in the soil match the seed pattern within it, what is inherent to it, that perfect pattern of potential naturally emerges. Mm-hmm. And the same is true for us. That is the law of emergence. Within you is already a seed of perfection planted in the soil of your soul. And when you surrender to it and you create the conditions that match it, it naturally emerges in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So many questions come to mind as I'm listening to you talk. And one of the biggest things is this whole idea of surrender. I think that it's an idea that it's a concept that we maybe have an idea of what that means. But until you're actually doing it, it's like there's this big gap between the idea of surrender and actually surrendering. So I would love for you to talk about how, and I think that this is when you were talking about drowning, that there was a part in the book, a quote, I'm trying to find it here. You said, "You needed a degree of faith and a willingness to let my life fall apart in order to fall together at a higher level." Is that what you were referring to?
Well, yeah. So surrender it's a big loaded word, and it means a lot of things to a lot of people. So it's important to break it down a little bit. What is the difference? What is real surrender? And surrender is not giving up, mm-hmm. though it can feel like that at times.
Yeah.
It's not an acquiescence to the conditions. It's not like, okay, my life's terrible, I give up. Even if you look at the 12-step groups, it's all about surrender. It's realizing that you are powerless over your life. But what are they? It's not so much that they're surrendering. It's what are they surrendering to? Mm-hmm. You're not so much surrendering from something. You're surrendering into something. But you're not surrendering into the situation. You're not like, this is terrible, I'm powerless, I give in to the situation. If you look at 12-step programs, they're surrendering to a higher power. Mm-hmm. So when the oak starts to want to break through that shell and it's creating all this pressure, if the acorn had a personality and it would feel a lot of pressure, it'd feel pain, it would go, oh my God, my life is cracking apart. Yeah. All that I've known is falling to pieces. Everything that was protecting me, I'm losing. Oh my God. And the acorn, if it had self-consciousness and self-improvement training, it would hire, a great shell repair person to come and fix the shell and do some Reiki to heal the shell cracks and make the shell stay together and be beautiful and shiny and go on to be the best nut in the forest. Mm-hmm. But luckily it doesn't have self-improvement, and it has to fall apart. So surrender in that case is it's surrendering to the oak tree. The acorn must yield to the oak. Mm. And so surrender in its truest sense is always a yielding to the higher idea that is emerging.
Yeah.
There's always something knocking at the door of our heart. There's always a next stage of our evolution. There's always more of us that's trying to come out. There's always more life, more love, more peace, more joy, more beauty, more abundance, more health, vitality, more wealth, more genius. There's always more. And so when we're surrendering, we're knowing that for whatever reason, evolutionary impulses, the work we've done on ourselves, we've brought ourselves to the place where our life isn't working anymore at this level or in this area. Mm-hmm. We've activated a larger vibration, a larger self, especially if it's a chronic problem. We're living in a world too small. There's a bigger us that has been awakened. And we're still trying to hold on to our protective acorn shell. And it's causing problems in our life. It's creating a breakdown in the system because the energy of our larger life can't express. So it wreaks havoc. It shows up as breakdowns in our body, in our bank account, in our relationships, etc. So, and that's always a signal that we're not aligned with the emerging energy and the emerging pattern. We've activated it somehow, and now the oak is trying to be born in us, and we're still trying to just be a great acorn. Mm-hmm. And so we're yielding to the larger life. And in fact, the prayer, thy will be done, mm-hmm. Not my will, but thy will be done. The will of God or the will of the goddess, the will of the universe is always for a greater expression of life. And so when you're saying, the highest level of surrender is thy will be done, because you're saying the highest pattern of existence be done. The highest vision of good be done. The highest expression of love and peace and life be done. That's really what thy will be done is saying. It can never be anything less than the highest expression of life. So surrender is a yielding to the greatest version of your life and your vision in any area, whether it's in financial, relationship, whatever. And the challenge, of course, is that it's not comfortable and fun all the time to go through that process, because the way we've been conditioned, we always identify with the current shell that we're in. Mm. So we identify as a human, as a physical being. We identify as this person's mate, or this kind of worker, or my father, mother's son or daughter, or we have all these identifications, which is really what the ego is. It's a set of identities really that make up one core identity or programs. And real change or transformation must break or shatter or ultimately eliminate one or more of those programs. And so to the ego, that's like death. Mm-hmm. The ego doesn't know the difference between the death of a program and the death of itself. Because to it, that's all it's made of, is these programs. So it feels really bad sometimes. It feels like your life is falling apart. It feels like you're losing, you know what I mean? And but it's so important. And that's why all the great masters have taught, don't judge by appearances. Don't look at the things that are falling apart and think that that's telling you what's true about your life. No, as you use that quote, things are falling apart in the world of the relative, in the world of changes, so that something larger can come together.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking of my own life and how many times I've come to that point of like maybe up-leveling, improving some area of my life, and how, gosh, with that just comes so much conflict and struggle and fear. And, really, I understand the ego, but it seems like if there is this higher self, or this, there's more, a larger life we're going to emerge into, why it's so scary. Why is it why does it have to be so dramatic?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple reasons for that. One is we like drama. Mm-hmm. And we chose to come here on Earth stage to play out these divine dramas because we like it. It's fun. And, I was an actor. And so, and I would be doing a play or, a film or something, and I'd be in a scene, and I'd be and I was a method actor, so I didn't fake it. I was really, if I was raging and mad, I was really mad. Or if I was crying, I was really crying. And if I was hating that person and wanting to kill them, or that person was breaking my heart and I was begging them to stay, I was really in that reality.
Mm.
And it hurt. And it was so much real pain and emotion and pathos. And I also knew I was an actor.
Yeah.
And so it was so much fun. I mean, I'm crying and there's a part of me going, oh my God, this is great. and so, I mean, I'm living in that situation. My heart is breaking, or my child has just died and I'm at the grave of my child and I'm sobbing. And it's the greatest creative moment of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know it's a play and I know I'm an actor. So I'm able to be in it, but not of it.
Yeah.
And that's what it means to be in the world, but not of it. And so we're in this divine drama. The problem happens because we've identified, we think we're the part we're playing, and that the play is real. And so we're asleep as the character in the drama, instead of awake as the actor and author who's participating. And the minute you wake up, you can enjoy the ride and also have a lot less drama if you choose.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the drama we create is for our awakening. And as you awaken consciously, you don't require the drama to wake you up. So, or if you've ever had a lucid dream where you wake up in the dream suddenly, you're running from monsters or people or whatever, and suddenly you wake up and you realize you're in a dream, you turn around to the monster or the people or the terrible, scary thing, and you just kind of go, ha, 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 and you wave your hand and it vanishes or whatever. You fly over it, you've become lucid. So the process of awakening is the same kind of thing. We're waking up in this human dream, in this human drama. And so the first part is we like drama. That's why we came here. That's why we love movies and all that stuff. And the second part is because we're identified with the part we're playing and the play we're in. And we need to begin to wake up from that and realize that we're the author and the actor. And we've created this drama for the awakening and the evolution of our soul. And as you get that new framework, you can step back on stage and play the part that you're really meant to play and not create new karma and not create more drama than you need. But even when there is drama of transformation, you don't get lost in it. Mm-hmm. You can actually feel joy even while in your body, in your emotions, and around you there is great sorrow or great challenge.
Yeah. Because
joy or peace or power is your true nature. It's never touched by the drama. And so that's it. Now, the other reason we experience drama, which is connected to the second reason of being identified with it, is because of resistance.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, we are in resistance to what's happening. We think that it's real, or we don't want it to change, or, we have our idea of who we are and what we think should or shouldn't happen. And so we're holding on. It's the acorn holding on to the shell, while the oak is still trying to emerge. Or it's like a little kid has to get pulled to the doctors, and he or she is grabbing onto to everything in sight to not let them pull them and they have to literally pry his hands free. And it's an incredibly torturous experience for everybody involved. So I remember when I was a young kid and got this one shot, and it was so painful. The next time they brought me there, I ran screaming out of the doctor's office before they could get me in there, into the elevator, downstairs, out into the park. And they literally had to chase me through the building. So resistance is a key thing. We're resisting what is trying to emerge. And you've probably heard the saying that pain is a part of life. Suffering is optional.
Mm-hmm.
And suffering is when we resist what's naturally breaking apart so that something more can emerge. Yeah. And one of the greatest technologies for managing that experience is meditation, especially mindfulness meditation. what Buddha taught, vipassana, which is or there's a lot of Zen teaching, which really comes from vipassana, but it's basically the ability to mindfully observe what's going on in you, mentally, emotionally, physically, without reacting to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that takes practice.
Yes.
It's a muscle because for most of us, we're so identified with the patterns of the mind. There's no gap. There's no space, right? And so we, in fact, I was just talking about this with somebody earlier, that most people don't have free will because they're just in reaction to all their patterns. They're mostly just reacting to what they don't want, what they're afraid of happening, what shouldn't be, and that. So they don't have free will. They have what I call free won't.
Mm.
But once you become mindful of the patterns that are running you, in that expanded awareness, you now have the beginnings of real choice.
Yeah. You
can now look and go, oh, that's why I'm thinking and feeling and doing that. It's this pattern that's running me. And I can observe that pattern that wants to, argue with this person and make them wrong and prove that I'm right or whatever. I can observe that and not speak. I can feel the need to defend myself. I can feel the pain. Oh my God, they're wrong and they're whatever. And I can observe it all and not do anything about it. And it literally starts to transmute and break down that pattern and that energy. I get to reclaim that energy now.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll watch as your relationships, your life changes because it's just a reflection of these unconscious patterns. And I've actually experienced that where somebody was attacking me, like verbally. Mm-hmm. And, oh my God, you're this and you always do this. And I'm so, and I saw the pattern come up in me. I was observing them, observing my emotional mental pattern. And as it began to dissolve and break down within me so that any reaction was dissolved, I was at peace. As that was happening, I was watching them and they were like, and it's just like, it seems like every time. And it's right as the pattern within me kind of just like broke apart, mm-hmm. They took a breath.
Yeah.
And they went, I don't know. Maybe it's really not about you.
Oh, wow.
It's just like, and I was like in awe. And they're like, I'm just going through a lot of hard stuff and this happened and I don't know. I'm so sorry. This isn't about you. And by the end of that conversation, I was consoling them and having compassion for them. And they were so grateful. And they thought I was such an amazing person. From attacking me to thinking I'm an amazing person, mm-hmm. Who changed?
Yeah.
It was me observing a pattern and the pattern just dissolved. And all of a sudden they changed. And so that practice of mindfulness is profound in its ability to give you the beginning of real choice and start to dissolve the karma and the old patterns. And what begins to bubble up underneath that is the next stage of your evolution of what's really trying to emerge. And a lot less drama shows up outside because you're not projecting it through the projector of your mind anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. So in the law of emergence, you talk about how we must create the inner conditions for our potential to emerge. What exactly are these conditions that you're talking about, and how do we create them?
Yeah, so, like we talked the example of the seed. There's a pattern in the seed, and when the conditions in the soil and the weather around it match the pattern, they're the right conditions, that seed naturally emerges, that potential, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So we want to think of the same thing is true with us. There's a pattern within us. So the first thing we do is, and this is true for any area of our life or just our life in general, is the first stage of emergence or emergineering, which is about engineering the full emergence of your life or any aspect of it, is having a vision. You have to know what, at least as best as you can, know what is trying to emerge. You have to know what is the vision. You have to know where you're going. Because if you don't know where you're going, every road will take you there.
Right.
And you'll be lost. So there's signs to what's emerging. One of the first signs is your burning desire. what you really, really want. From emergence, a desire, it actually comes from a root that means of the sire, of the father, or of the creative principle, and also from the heavens. So it represents not something that's outside of you that you have to go get, but something inside of you trying to get out.
Yeah.
So you're pregnant with the next stage of your own evolution. So that burning desire is a very powerful clue. So, I mean, there's a lot of them. And in my emergence work, I break down the core, things that will give you the clues to what's trying to emerge in you and how to then process that. But that's stage one. Mm-hmm. Stage two is cultivating the congruent conditions that match that seed. So now that you know what that desire is, let's just say it's a desire to be more abundant, to have more wealth in your life, to be financially free. So you ask, well, what would that look like in my life? If I was fully free financially, abundant, wealthy, it's going to be different for everyone. If I was living the full measure and meaning and potential of my financial wealth and abundance and freedom, what would that look like? And that's where you let the tool like visualization come into play. It's the angel of your imagination that begins to allow you to see and imagine the highest vision of what financial freedom looks like for you. And really see it, really describe it, really feel it. But you're not visualizing to make that happen. You're visualizing to activate the essence and the feeling tone, which is always true. The images may not be true, because our mind is creating images based on mostly on conditioning. Sure. So it may or may not be true that we're going to have the millions of dollars or be on the cover of Time or Oprah or whatever. But the way that it makes us feel when we imagine that is true. That's the truth of our being. That's our destiny, the joy, the empowerment, the expansiveness, the safety, etc. So we get clear on that. And then who we're being as a result of those feelings. So we imagine that because we're feeling this way, now we're walking with more confidence, we are more playful, we're more generous, we're more spontaneous. That also is true. So now we use the vision to discover the feeling and the being tone, and we write those down. And that's what we begin to really work with. Now, we will also, in the full picture of Emergineering, we work with the visual, with the actual physical as well, in terms of you want $1 million. Okay, let's look at how you can do that. Mm-hmm. But we start with the foundation, which is how will I feel and who will I be? And then we ask questions like, let's just say one of the feelings was joy. And so we ask ourselves, what people, places, activities, or objects activate a feeling of joy for me? Mm-hmm. And it can be from the past. It can be from things you do sometimes but not enough, things you want to do but haven't had time for. And you start to identify people, and the people can be literally that you hang out with, or like being on a call like this where you're in the company of others, or reading a book about somebody, or listening to an audio. You're in the presence of some other being, you feel the joy. Or when you're in certain places, you feel the joy. Or doing certain activities, you feel the joy. And sometimes it could be all three. It's with someone doing something in a certain place. Or if you have certain objects in your environment, it brings up that quality of joy. And I'm just picking one quality, and then you begin to engineer those things into your life. Mm-hmm. So that you begin to surround yourself with the people, places, and things that represent where you want to go, what you want to be, not where you've been. Because most of us, the strategy we have and the environment we've developed has been a reaction to what we don't want, to what we're afraid of, self-preservation, safety, comfort, convenience. And it's keeping us stuck vibrationally to an old story. Yeah. So this is how we begin to re-engineer the new story based on what the vision is. And we start to re-engineer that into our life. We also start to engineer out of our life the people, places, things, and activities that are no longer congruent with that vision. Mm-hmm. And that can be some of the harder parts. Yeah. Because we're in a lot of situations, relationships, conversations that are not congruent. Now, here's the good news. In some of those, you can't get out of them right away. It's a job you can't just quit today, I mean, you could, but, practically speaking, I wouldn't advise it.
Right.
Or it's a relationship. You can't just leave maybe right away, or it's an environment like a home or something. Mm-hmm. So the second piece is the being. And that is, who would I be? So let's say I would be more spontaneous, more generous, more outgoing, more whatever. You take one of those and you say, what would it look like for me to step into being that more fully in my life now? Or if you're working in a particular area, in this relationship now. So what would it look like to be more spontaneous in this relationship now? Then what happens is you start to get access to guidance of where you have the opportunity to step into and to start to let out of you more of your real self in this situation. Because whatever's missing is what you're not giving.
Yeah.
Whatever you're waiting for, you're actually waiting with and weighing it down. Life's never holding anything back from you. You're only holding yourself back from life, because life doesn't happen to you. It happens through and as you. You're the opening through which life happens. Mm-hmm. So when you ask how you can step into being that and start to generate that, you are activating the infinite capacity of your being. And what happens is one of two things. That situation or environment will start to shift to match you. Or if it's not able, you will be moved to an environment that can. Mm.
And I imagine that's not always easy and pain-free.
No, it's absolutely not. And I'm going through some of those right now myself.
Me too.
And it's not easy. And that's why this stuff, the fine print of this stuff is, if you really want to change your life, if you really want to grow, if you really want to be awesome and brilliant and shine and fulfill your destiny, don't wait for it to be easy or comfortable, because you will be waiting forever.
That's right.
Now, that doesn't mean, again, you have to suffer. The more you understand what's happening, the less you'll suffer. But because you won't resist it as much. And the more you reclaim dominion over your awareness, the more you'll be able to mindfully hold all the drama that's unfolding through you, and it just won't hurt as much. Even when you're in pain, it won't hurt as much, because you're not identified with that. And you might even enjoy it. I mean, I've had moments recently where there was so much emotional and physical, even pain going on in my life because of some stuff. And I fell into this space where I was in just such gratitude. I was in such gratitude, and I was literally observing all of this and just so joyful and grateful. Mm-hmm. So you can be in that space. And then, I talk about how I got fired from a job 3 times, and until I eventually stayed fired because I was doing the work to show up.
Yeah.
And how I got my first house was, I was doing the work to show up in the little condo that I did have, the little dark condo that no longer felt good and was cramped. And I was doing the work and showing up and filling it out like it was my castle. Mm-hmm. And eventually, I got moved into the opportunity where this house could happen. Mm-hmm. So we must grow where we're planted. But what most people do is they are in a bad relationship, a bad job, a bad house, a bad environment, and they bemoan their fate and ask, why me? And they hope and wish and dream for a better future. And someday, and I'll be grateful when, and they might even do a bunch of work to attract and achieve something, but it's all from the place of how much life sucks. Mm. Yeah. And when they understand that, if you're doing anything in order to be happy, you're doing it in the wrong order. That you must start with happiness. You must start with gratitude. You must start with abundance and wealth and health and power. You must start right here where you are, bringing that to whatever you've got. And then what you've got will transform to reflect that. Or, like I said, the universe will bring you the things and the people that do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that natural unfolding if you can step back and allow it to happen and surrender to the process.
Yeah, and it's a combination of surrendering to the process but it's also very much engaging the process. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important point to add in here. It's the stage stage 5 of Emergeneering. And that's about action. What happens with a lot of heart-centered, spiritually minded people is usually we have a core wound, which was also a core initiation around who we were being in the world and how we were showing up and feeling judged, shamed, blamed, attacked, or we had a parent or teacher or authority figure that was very aggressive, dominating, controlling. So we had very negative shadows created or values conflicts created around power and action and aggression and really being in the world. And that was that core wound and initiation drove us into our spirit, into our heart, and activated our initiation of awakening. But it also created a lot of coping mechanisms where, we're really loving and kind and sweet, or we do a lot of inner work, and we're sort of waiting for the work to work. Mm-hmm. We're doing all this great inner work, and we're being of service to the people in our life, and we're believing that if we just keep, taking care of them or doing our inner work, eventually they'll take care of us back, or life will show up at our front door, like in The Secret, where the kid just thinks of a bike and a bike shows up at his front door.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, or fortunately, really, that's just often not how it works. Mm-hmm. Now, it can work that way, but here's the thing. Often, if we're not engaging with action that matches our vision, the action itself is it's what I call an affirmation in work clothes. It's a moving affirmation. It's a living affirmation. If you're doing all this work, I'm abundant, I'm abundant, I'm abundant. And then you go to the store and you want to buy, apples that are organic for an extra 99 cents versus the ones that are covered in pesticides. But you go, I can't afford that. That was a moment of action for you to engage and become a match to your vision.
That's a great example.
And that's a little example that for most people, they can do that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Or if you're in a conversation and you've been visioning and holding to a vision of power, and, maybe it's your husband or your partner. And this happens for a lot of women where they, especially if they're in a relationship where like the partner is the breadwinner that makes the money or they've given away a lot of their authority. And, you want something in your life and you kind of slightly mention it to him, and he's like, oh no, that's not going to work. I'm like, okay, you go away, instead of thinking, because you don't want to have conflict, you don't want to bring up all this stuff. Well, what would it look like to step into really being the powerful goddess that you are? Mm-hmm. What would that look like in that relationship? Yeah. Well, it doesn't mean you're going to be ranting and raving. That's well, I joke with I have a community of a lot of women, and I say it's time to embrace your inner diva bitch. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean you're going to walk around being a bitch. When you're a bitch or a bastard, it's because you're not embracing your power.
Right.
It's because you've repressed it. And so action in that case means first the inner work, but then stepping into those conversations and staying in those conversations. And it's going to be very scary and very uncomfortable. And that's why we don't do it. And then we do a bunch of more inner work and vision boards and hope it'll just change. It won't change because we have to step into it. We have to engage it. We have to embody it. Yeah. And so action in that regard is so, so important. Now, once you've done that to a certain extent and you've really embodied and integrated, then yes, you can just activate something in consciousness and it can show up at your front door. Mm-hmm. But if there's some area where you're hiding by not acting, then action is the only way you can grow and transform. And for so many of us, that's so true. That's one of our biggest obstacles, mm-hmm. is that we're not taking enough congruent action with our vision.
Yeah.
And consistent.
Yeah, definitely. And what I've found is that it doesn't matter how it can be the smallest step in that direction. And that I find is what's important, is that you're just taking those steps. It doesn't have to be this big, huge thing that you do. You can just take those little tiny steps. As long as you're moving in that direction, then that's what's going to get you there. kind of activates that power.
Yes, exactly. You start with whatever gets you moving in that direction, gets the momentum going. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say you can never actually be stuck. There's always something you can do to move your energy towards your vision. Always. Yeah. Even if you're in solitary confinement in a prison, you have the greatest power, which is your spirit and your consciousness. And you can always move your consciousness in the direction of your vision by activating it, by feeling into it, by visualizing it, by imagining it, by affirming it. If you're in solitary confinement and you could get up, you could exercise, you could speak, I'm just using like the most extreme example to show that, like, or even if you're paralyzed, literally. So, Stephen Hawking, who literally can't move a muscle and is one of the most brilliant brains on the planet because he moved towards his vision regardless. So you can always move towards your vision, even if it's a baby step. And baby steps are great because, you have to crawl in most cases before you walk. Yeah. And the crawling is actually wiring your brain so that when you do start walking, you're going to be really able to do the things that walking requires. If you skipped crawling and just to walk, you wouldn't have wired your brain because of the cross wiring that happens from crawling. Just to talk about crawling and, that's a little side tangent there, but it's similar. It's what's happening when we start where we are. Now, there also are other situations where, we've been trying to do things in baby steps. And what we're really doing is we're avoiding the real step that we know we need to take.
Yes.
And I found this to be a very important distinction for people to discover. Mm-hmm. It's like, we're trying to get in shape and, we go to the gym once or twice a week and say, hey, I'm going. Hey, I'm here. It's better than nothing. And yes and no. But we noticed that it's just not, we really haven't changed. Our lifestyle hasn't really changed. We're really not losing the weight or getting in shape. And there's just too much resistance. And going once or twice is just not enough to create momentum. And so you have to get what I call escape velocity. Because, if for a rocket ship to get out of the gravity of Earth, it needs escape velocity. It can't just take baby steps. It can't just kind of sort of blast off. Mm-hmm. It has to have a certain level of thrust. And it has to maintain that thrust for a certain time until it gets beyond the gravitational pull. Yeah. Well, for some of us, we have very resistant patterns. The gravity of our old identity and patterns. We need a level of intensity and consistency to break through that gravity. Yeah. And so, for example, with exercise, we might instead need to, join a marathon club and actually get in with a group of people training for a marathon. Mm-hmm. If you've never even run before, it's like, what? And I'm like, yes, join a marathon club. That's going to create a structure and a momentum. It's going to change your lifestyle. Or, you've been wanting to write a book for 10 years and you're trying and you start and you get a few pages and then you lose momentum and resistant patterns kick in. I'm like, join this particular type of book club where you have to write a book in a month. Mm-hmm. It's like, holy crap. And now, it creates structure and momentum. So it just depends on where you are. Yeah. That sometimes you've been doing baby steps and you're like a teenager still crawling. Yeah. And it's time to get up and actually start running.
Okay, I'll give it to you. Yeah.
So I can tell that there's something in your life that requires you to launch right now. I can feel there's something for you to launch.
Me, yes.
Yeah. There's something there, yeah.
Yeah, it's as you were talking about the rocket ship, I also was thinking about, pregnancy and delivery. When you're delivering a baby, you can't just like do little
That's right.
baby steps. You have to get that baby out of there and get the momentum and go. So right. Yeah, that's a great point.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's what I call at a certain point in your development, you hit what I call the urgency of emergence. Mm-hmm. And if you don't respond to the urgency of emergence, you will have an emergency.
Yes. Yeah.
So and we all, and for many of us, we're in that place on the planet right now. And there is an urgency of emergence. The emerging power, the evolutionary impulse is so strong. And where you see things turning into crisis, it's because of these pockets of old patterns of resistance that are just being pushed to the surface. But we're also feeling it individually. And many of us are in various forms of crisis.
Yes.
And for many of us, we don't even realize we're in an existential crisis, meaning we think our problem is, I don't have enough money, I have too much weight on my body, not enough money in my bank account, not enough, I need a new partner, my job sucks. But that's not really what's creating the problem and the suffering. We're in an existential crisis because we're not in integrity with our true self and our true purpose and our true work and our true essence.
Yeah.
And now more than ever, if we don't get in touch with that and make that the number one priority in our life, we're going to suffer. It's like the Gospel of Thomas. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. But if you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you.
Yeah.
That emerging energy must have its way now more than ever. And we have to start saying yes to that yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're totally right on. Yes. Okay. So, I always like to end the show with a practical tip. So I'm wondering, what is your best way for us to move forward with our goals and our dreams, starting like right now? Because, this is the beginning of the year, and this is like when the momentum happens. So what's something that you recommend people do?
Well, the first thing I want to recommend they do is get my free Emergence training.
Yes.
So, because then if you're resonating with anything I'm saying, you're going to be blown away by what I walk you step by step through in this Emergence training. And you can just go, you can get the link on your site, I know, or you can just go to www.emergencetraining.com. And that's EM as in Mary, ERGEN as in Nancy, CE, training, TRAINING, all one word, emergencetraining.com. And you can also get my new book, Emergence, the 7 Steps for Radical Life Change, which is just coming out from Simon & Schuster and Beyond Words. And it's my life's work in that book. And it walks you step by step through the whole emergineering process. And so with the video and the book as a starting point, you're going to have the foundation. And what I can tell you is when you really understand and practice and apply this Emergence foundation, which I didn't create, I codified it. This is what's called universal principle. This is the master teaching. It's what the great masters taught, Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tzu, Krishna. If you actually pull away the dogma, the doctrine, this is the core foundation of what they all taught. You are the answer. You already have it all within you. Yeah. There's nothing outside of you, but you have to know how to get what's in you out. And the emergence process is how to do that, how to bring out your destiny, how to bring out your potential instead of what we've been conditioned, which is how to go out and get it, which is the source of all of our suffering. So I would start there, get the training, the free training, and at emergencetraining.com. And that's going to give you some very specific step-by-step practical tips to take this work to the next level.
Fantastic. Yeah. And you all have to get his book. It's just super, super fantastic. I mean, it was just hard to put it down. So, yes, I loved reading your book.
Thank you so much. That book went through the process of emergence, too. It was rejected by every major publisher and more than once, I think. And, they were like, they didn't get it. They didn't understand it because it was all during the time of law of attraction.
Yeah.
And they're like, but I thought you have to attract everything. And, they just didn't understand it. And it forced me to go deeper, to do the work I was teaching.
Yes.
And to become a match for that vision and principle, and then as they started to see, when I went back out again, they started to see that tens of thousands of people around the world were getting amazing results from this work. They're like, maybe something is going on with this law of emergence thing.
Yeah.
And then I had not only did the publishers not turn me down, but we had multiple publishers. And so it was a testimony to the very practice itself, how the book emerged.
Yes. And I think that's the most important thing is definitely practicing what you preach and being able to have the results that you are talking about. So yes. Awesome. That's an awesome story. So any last words before we finish up?
I would just say that, if you get nothing else out of this, understand that what I'm saying, the fundamental principle or essence of what I'm saying, this isn't theory. This is as true as 2 + 2 = 4. And that is that everything you've been seeking, everything you want or need, everything you think you need to get from someone else, everything you think this world's going to give you, you brought it all with you. All of it. The whole of life, of power, of abundance, of joy, of beauty, of love, it's all within you. And you didn't come here to get anything. You came here to give it. The word human comes from a Sanskrit term that means the dispenser of divine gifts. You are here to dispense the gifts of the divine, to put heaven on display in a unique way that only you can, so that your life becomes one of the true wonders of the world. When you were younger in school, people say, and you'd be like all in your power, and somebody would say, who do you think you are, God's gift to the world? Well, now you can answer with confidence. As a matter of fact, yes.
Yes, I am.
And guess what? So are you. So I invite you to unwrap that gift and begin to give it today like never before in this year, and make this the best year of your life.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Yay. This was fantastic. Well, thanks, Derek, for spending this time with us today. Oh, this was such a wonderful conversation. Gosh, and like I said, everybody needs to check out your book because there's so much value in there. And, just going within and knowing that you are like that acorn, that as long as you just allow things to naturally flow for you, you line things up, that you too will become your oak tree.
Absolutely. That destiny, that perfect pattern, it's within all of us. And again, just go to emergencetraining.com to get the free multi-part video training and Emergence, the book.
Yes.
You can get that anywhere.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. And thanks everyone for listening to the Awakened Goddess Show. If you are as inspired as I was, make sure to subscribe on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and review. And until next time, goodbye everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Awakened Goddess. I hope you enjoyed today's show and took away something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at thegoddessnextdoor.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.